Something shifted on the Temple Mount in 2025 that hasn't changed in 57 years. For the first time since 1967, Israeli officials are allowing Jewish prayer at one of the most contested sites on earth. Over 56,000 Jews ascended the mount last year. Priests are training. Ancient vessels sit ready in Jerusalem. And in July 2025, a ceremony that hasn't been performed in 2,000 years was attempted. Some call it prophecy unfolding. Others call it politics. But one thing nobody disputes: the preparations are complete. The question isn't if anymore, it's when. Let's start with what just happened, because this isn't ancient history. This is right now. For decades, there's been an unwritten rule on the Temple Mount. Jews could visit, but they couldn't pray. They couldn't sing. They couldn't bow. Israeli police enforced this policy strictly to avoid conflict with the Islamic authorities who control the site. That rule stood for 57 years, until it didn't. In May 2025, Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, made an announcement. Jewish prayer, including full prostration, would now be permitted on the Temple Mount. Not hidden, not whispered, open prayer. By June, Jewish visitors were singing and dancing throughout the entire compound. In August, Ben-Gvir himself led prayers at the site for the first time. And in January 2026, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly backed these changes, saying they were coordinated and did not breach what he called the status quo. The numbers tell the story. In the Hebrew year 5775, which covers 2024 to 2025, the Temple Mount recorded 56,079 Jewish visits. That's more than the entire previous year. In just 1 month, the Hebrew month of Av in 2025, over 7,500 Jews ascended the Mount. That's a 15% increase compared to the same period the year before. And here's what makes this significant. One Jewish visitor put it this way: 100 years ago, the state of Israel was unimaginable. Then the Western Wall was out of reach. A decade ago, praying on the Mount seemed impossible. Now it's happening. This isn't just a policy change. It's the removal of one of the final barriers to something much bigger. But prayer access is only part of the picture. Because while this was happening on the Temple Mount, something else was being prepared just a few blocks away. And what's sitting in that building would shock most people. In the heart of Jerusalem's old city, just steps from the Western Wall, there's a building called the Temple Institute. It was founded in 1987 with one mission: prepare everything needed to restore the Holy Temple. And they've done it. Walk inside their exhibition, and you'll see what looks impossible. A golden menorah made from 95 pounds of pure gold, gleaming under soft lights. An incense altar overlaid in gold, crafted exactly as described in the book of Exodus. The showbread table sits nearby. So does the copper basin used for priestly washing. Even the silver trumpets that priests once sounded have been reforged. And yes, they work, but it goes deeper than vessels. They've recreated the musical instruments from King David's time. Harps, lyres, even cymbals crafted to match biblical dimensions. They've remade the anointing oil using the sacred recipe from Exodus chapter 30. Rare spices like myrrh and cassia. This oil, once used to consecrate kings and priests, hasn't been seen in generations. Then there are the garments. The high priest's ephod, woven with gold thread, blue, purple, and scarlet. The breastplate set with 12 precious stones representing the tribes of Israel, linen tunics, sashes, headpieces, all recreated in exact detail and approved by top rabbinical scholars. This isn't a museum collection. These items are functional, ready, waiting. For more than 3 decades, the Temple Institute has been working piece by piece to recreate what once stood in Solomon's temple and later in Herod's temple. They've put these items on public display. They've broadcast their work online. They've trained staff to explain what they believe is an unfolding reality. So what's missing? Only the temple itself. And one other thing, something ancient, something mysterious, something that was attempted in July 2025. For thousands of years, Jewish tradition has pointed to a specific requirement: a perfect red heifer. According to the book of Numbers, chapter 19, this heifer must be completely red, without a single blemish, and it must never have been used for work. Only such an animal can be used in an ancient purification ceremony necessary before temple service can begin. Without it, no priest can be ritually cleansed. Without it, no temple worship can happen. Here's where it gets real. On July 1st, 2025, a practice ceremony was conducted on a remote hilltop in northern Israel. Witnesses included a Torah-observant rabbi and others who'd been waiting for this moment. It was a rehearsal of the red heifer burning ritual that hasn't been performed in over 2,000 years. Then, 1 week later on July 8th, an actual red heifer was brought forward for sacrifice. Priests dressed in ceremonial garments prepared to conduct the ritual. Thousands had been watching this development. News outlets from around the world had reported on it. But there was a problem. During the final inspection, 2 black hairs were found on the heifer's body. According to the strict biblical requirements, that disqualified it. The ceremony went forward as practice, but it wasn't the valid sacrifice they needed. By August 2025, the Temple Institute confirmed on their Facebook page that all red heifer candidates had been disqualified. Despite years of effort and multiple animals brought from Texas to Israel in 2022, they still don't have a ritually pure red heifer. So the preparations are complete, except for this one piece. But while the world was watching heifers, something else was happening. Something involving actual people, actual training, and actual blood sacrifices. Long before the temple was destroyed in 70 AD, God commanded that the priesthood, descendants of Aaron, be set apart for service. That commandment was never revoked. Today, after 2,000 years of exile, their lineage hasn't been lost. Thanks to detailed genealogical records kept in Jewish communities and recent DNA studies, a group of men with verified priestly ancestry has been identified. These are descendants of the Kohanim line, stretching back to ancient Israel. More than 300 of them are in training right now. Not theoretical training, practical training. They're learning how to perform sacrificial offerings with exact precision. They rehearse the morning and evening rituals. They study the laws of purity, the handling of sacred vessels, the choreography of temple worship, down to where each footstep must fall. Replica altars have been constructed outside Jerusalem. Practice sacrifices have been conducted with actual goats and lambs, not symbolic displays. Ritually correct rehearsals for actual temple service. In 2016, something significant happened. A newly re-established Sanhedrin, a council of 71 Torah scholars modeled after the original governing body from the Second Temple era, appointed a potential high priest. His name is Rabbi Baruch Kahane. Though the appointment remains conditional, Rabbi Kahane has already worn the full garments of the high priest in ceremonial training events. He's presided over rehearsals of Yom Kippur rituals and overseen priestly education. The Sanhedrin, re-established in 2005, meets regularly and works alongside temple advocacy organizations to ensure readiness in every dimension. The priests are ready, the vessels are ready. But there's another piece to this puzzle, one that involves people scattered across the globe for millennia. There's a prophecy in Ezekiel chapter 37. God tells the prophet to take 2 sticks, one for Judah, one for Joseph, and join them together. Then comes the promise, I will take the children of Israel from among the nations where they have gone, and will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. For centuries, that seemed impossible. The tribes were scattered. Israel didn't exist as a nation, but something remarkable has been happening. Start in northeastern India. There's a group called the Bnei Menashe, meaning sons of Manasseh. They claim descent from one of Israel's lost tribes. For generations, they've observed the Sabbath, followed kosher dietary laws, and preserved ancient Hebrew prayers. Over 5,000 of them have already immigrated to Israel under Jewish law. More are preparing to come. Then there's the Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews who lived in isolation for centuries. Their faith, passed down through generations, mirrored Mosaic law so closely, it stunned scholars when discovered. Today, around 150,000 Ethiopian Jews live in Israel, many brought over in dramatic rescue operations, called Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. In southern Africa, the Lemba people of Zimbabwe and South Africa have long claimed Israelite ancestry. For years, few took them seriously. Then, genetic research revealed that many Lemba men carry a distinct DNA marker associated with the priestly line of Aaron. Their customs, circumcision, dietary restrictions, Sabbath observance, speak to a heritage preserved through centuries. But it's not just these isolated groups. Since Israel became a nation in 1948, over 3.5 million Jews have returned from across the world. Russia, France, the United States, South America. The prophecy spoke of gathering from every side, and that's exactly what's been happening. Not with fanfare, just families arriving at airports, lighting Sabbath candles in cities that are now home. But why does all this matter right now? Here's where everything connects. Because if you study biblical prophecy, there's a pattern that keeps appearing. The Temple, Jerusalem, Israel, all three play a central role in what many believe are end times events. Look at Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. It speaks of a covenant confirmed for 7 years, but halfway through, something happens. He will cause the sacrifice and offering to cease and set up an abomination that causes desolation. Jesus himself referenced this prophecy in the Gospels. The Apostle Paul expanded on it in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, describing a figure many interpret as the Antichrist, who will sit in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Think about what that requires. For sacrifices to cease, they must first be happening. For someone to sit in the temple must exist. And in Revelation chapter 11, John is told to measure the temple but not the outer court, for it is given to the Gentiles. Some scholars interpret this as a sign of division or shared arrangement on the Temple Mount. Could the third temple be built alongside existing structures? Could there be some kind of compromise under a future peace agreement? We don't know for certain, but here's what we do know. The conversation has already begun. Behind closed doors and sometimes in public statements, religious leaders and political figures in Israel are discussing possibilities. Not just access, not just preparation, but actual construction. Rabbi Yehuda Glick, a former Knesset member and longtime temple activist, has stated plainly, we must prepare for the temple spiritually and practically. Temple Mount advocacy groups are growing. More Jews are ascending the Mount each year, not as tourists, but as worshipers, quietly, peacefully, intentionally. And with the recent policy changes, those visits are increasing. The barriers are coming down. So let's look at what's actually in place right now. In 1948, Israel became a nation again after nearly 2,000 years. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 8 asked the question, can a nation be born in a day? Yet there it was. In 1967, Israel took control of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War. Suddenly, Zechariah's ancient words carried new weight. I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling, a burdensome stone for all people. And that's exactly what the city has become, a focal point of global tension. Now, in 2025 and 2026, the prayer ban on the Temple Mount has been systematically dismantled. Over 56,000 Jews ascended the Mount in a single year. The vessels are crafted, the priests are trained, the garments are ready, the tribes are returning. For the first time since the temple was destroyed, every preparation is complete. That condition, absent for nearly 2 millennia, is no longer theoretical. And according to multiple biblical prophecies, once that temple stands, a specific timeline begins. Daniel speaks of 7 years. Revelation describes events that unfold in sequence. Jesus warned his disciples in Matthew chapter 24, verse 44, therefore be ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man comes. The pieces aren't just moving, they're locking into place. But here's what most people aren't watching. While the world focuses on political tensions and peace deals, there's another development happening right now, something that connects directly to the temple timeline, something involving nations, alliances, and agreements that weren't possible even 5 years ago. The temple preparations are complete. The access has been granted. The question isn't whether anymore. The question is what happens in the time between now and then. And that timeline might be shorter than anyone realizes.